Hi, I'm Lesley Coleman. This time on Tête-à-tête, I'm speaking to Richard Sarell, a television and theatre director with decades of experience. Richard is the founder of the Rehearsal Room, which trains actors employing innovative methods stemming from his frontline experience. What was it that made you decide to start a new school? Because there's lots of acting schools around, so what made you?
Well, I perceived the need because, as a director, you watch actors coming into the audition room all the time and going, what on earth are you doing that for? I used to see regularly in the audition room is actors not being lazy, having put a massive amount of work into stuff that they thought was really important and that I thought was going to have somewhere between a 5 and a 2% effect on the outcome. And they had no understanding of what the important things were that were going to have a 90% effect on the outcome.
What is it that you as a director bring to the table that's different?
Yeah, it's interesting because that's why I started teaching, because people that were working with me said, you're doing something different and I want to learn how to do it. Well, the first thing has been always a focus on delivering story. And you look at all the acting manuals and story doesn't get a mention.
No, it doesn't.
And there's a whole lot of other stuff out there, which is the 2 to 5% territory, I reckon. I was always focused on story. It was my interest. And it's along the way, the thing that's been unique about the rehearsal room process is that we've developed more and more techniques to enable actors to manage story effectively.
So what are the most important techniques? Give me the first 3.
As far as story goes, it's the conversation that's actually going to be the major thing in delivering it. And again, nobody's done any work on how conversation works. Whereas we now know a lot about how conversation works, and what's more, we've got it divided up into really simple categories.
Okay, what are those categories?
Well, there are different roles in a conversation. To start with, every conversation has an instigator and a responder. Right? Every conversation you have in life is started by someone. Actors never decide whether they're the instigator or whether they're a responder in a conversation, and therefore they're actually leaving out an essential ingredient that the person knows. Because in life, you start the conversation, I go, oh, whoa, I've got to deal with this. Or I may be thinking for days about how I'm going to start the conversation with you. Okay. But look, the other really big deficit, and this is bizarre, is character. Can you think of any acting book that you can go to that says, Chapter 5, How to Create a Character?
Well, I think there are lots of places that do talk about character and do work on character. So what's different about the way you do it?
People do generalised work about character. Right? But in fact, the screen actor, and I'm going to direct a play this year, and nothing's going to be different there. You need to, if you walk into the audition room, you need to be able to change character in seconds. Because they maybe don't want you like that, they want you like this. And there is nothing that trains actors how to do that. In fact, I would argue that actors don't know what a character is, whereas I can give you a very simple description of how we recognise a character.
Okay, what is it?
It's your behaviour. I understand your nature from your behaviour. And when I describe a friend to you and say they are like this, I describe their behaviour. So if you can shift your behaviour with a really simple techniques and shift it a lot, which is again what actors can't do unless they train here. And casting directors are always saying it's amazing how rehearsal room actors can take direction. And it's because they can change a conversation really simply.
Okay.
And it's because they can change character really simply. And I can teach you to change character in somewhere between 3 and 10 seconds.
Great. Can you give me an example?
It's the problem with the history of acting is that Stanislavski gave this wonderful thing to the world, which is how to use verbs. And what Stanislavski's great gift to the world is the value of simple and active labels. So what actors do, they use so many verbs that they make it so complicated that in fact they can't do it. If this person wants to be liked by me, then she is going to have a particular pattern of behaviour.
Yep.
And that pattern of behaviour is going to be what moderates the way she goes about her conversation. See, that's one of the things, that's actually one of the rehearsal room principles, you see. Here we go, how convenient is that? You need to be able to manage those two areas, and you need to be able to manage them separately, right? One is conversation, one is character, and you need to be able to change the character without affecting the conversation. And you need to be able to change the conversation without affecting the character.
Okay, but you're not giving me an example of how you change on a dime.
I'm just saying, on a dime,
Yeah.
if you want to be liked, you're going to have a pattern of behaviour.
Yeah.
If you want to dominate me,
Yeah.
you're going to have a different pattern of behaviour. But as long as that desire to dominate or to please or to sits behind the conversation and moderates the way you go about it, then it changes the nature of the person that's having the conversation. So you can change the nature of the person and not change the conversation. And I can show you videos of actors doing this in the audition room in somewhere between 5 and 20 seconds.
Well, I mean, I would argue that many acting schools do teach you how to do that.
Oh, right, cool. Do they?
I know, and yes, they do. And using that same set of verbs, the Stanislavski verbs, of being able to say, okay, my want is this and my want is that, and changing.
Okay.
So
well, I would argue that they don't on the evidence that I see.
Yeah. So there's something else under there, I think, in the way you're doing it.
There is.
That's different.
There is, and it comes back to that graph again, because when directors and acting teachers are talking to you about what you want, then the wants they are talking about, some of them are conscious and some of them are unconscious.
Yep.
And they don't separate them.
Yep.
Right. So that's a really good point.
That is different.
That's a really good point, because actors use verbs all the time and make changes, but in fact they don't understand which area that it's affecting. And behaviour is seen as one area, whereas I'm going relationship and behaviour connected to relationship is an entirely separate area to conversation and the behaviour that's connected to conversation.
Okay.
And you know, it's very simple once you get the hang of that to be able to change one area and then the other. And yes, verbs are used all the time. And they're used for actions, you see. And look, I know a young actor who's at university at the moment, and her lecturer said to her, next term we're going to deal with actions. And we're going to deal with it differently because I'm always a bit uncertain how to deal with actions. That's the lecturer. And I'm going, the world is totally confused about actions. But I can tell you, I'm not. Actions are really simple. Don't do them. Actions are bullshit.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you don't do actions in life. I don't have a different action on every line in life.
No,
I have
you
one
don't.
conversation and I have one relationship.
And you have a number of tactics to get what you want out of that conversation. Yeah.
But and that's the other bullshit thing about actions, is that I'm going to choose those tactics in this moment on how you are behaving now. But what do? They choose the tactics before they start and write them down on their page. So don't need to listen anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really important point, because yes, you do. You go through and you put them all down and you script. My thinking is that that's the preparation that you've done, and then you leave it at the door.
Right.
And so you come into the scene and you've got that. Or maybe that is the subconscious.
Well, that's the intention.
Yeah.
But in fact, what I think you need to be doing is you need to be able to bring you to it, not your planning. One of the things that we've learnt recently is the difference between priming yourself to do something and actually putting something concrete in place.
Yeah.
That there's a whole lot of stuff that you prime yourself for, and that's going to come along in the conversation if you do something that provokes it.
Yeah.
But the conversation goal I can plan. And the conversation goal is going to stay the same. But I've got to keep working on it depending on how you are. So we get a really interactive quality out of this process.
Yeah. I think in some other traditional schools what you would hear people say is, you do your preparation, you leave it at the door, and then you are in the moment.
Right.
And you are informed by that preparation, but you need to respond and listen. And so what I think I'm hearing from you is a development of that
Absolutely. I think
to give the actor more confidence
and clarity.
and clarity. Yeah.
And it's true. And look, that stuff all made sense, right? And it was entirely logical. And I'm not critical of it in that sense. It's been part of the journey, but it was made sense 50 years ago. But you see, psychologists now understand a huge amount more about how this works.
Absolutely right.
And this only does one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And if you prime yourself to do too many things, then you end up behaving like an actor and not like the person in the conversation. So there's a whole lot of stuff about what psychologists know that's built into rehearsal room process that actually enables you to function the way we do in life, because psychologists know more about the way you function in life now.
Yeah, that's really powerful. That's really
And it's not
powerful.
rocket science.
Yeah.
But and this is why I think that actors come out of university confused. And Glenn Quinn is a classic example of that. And Glenn came to the rehearsal room with a degree course in the ensemble, right? And rehearsal room process clarified the job for him. And what we found is there are lots of actors that come out of university confused, and actually saying to actors, you can do Laban, or you can do Meisner, or you can do, and then you choose, I think is a totally inadequate way of teaching. Because in fact, they don't actually have the experience, or in fact, a clear understanding of how those things really work to decide, okay, I need to use that one there and this one there. And so they've got all these options and they don't know what to do with them.
And again, that's where your director's focus comes in, because you can see where they're missing.
Yeah, and where they're missing is they're not being consistently real, because they're behaving like an actor and not like the person in those circumstances and in this relationship. And they're missing because they don't stay on a conversation goal, which we do in life. Right? We start a conversation for a reason, we stay on it until we achieve or fail at that reason.
Yeah.
And they don't do that, and objectives, historically, I think, haven't achieved that for them. And that's why we have conversation goals.
And that's a very interesting distinction.
It's a very interesting distinction.
Yeah.
And again, I can demonstrate the effectiveness of it. The other big problem that actors have, you know, is they've been taught to read. That's a massive problem, because when you read, you envisage. And when you're, as a reader, when you're envisaging what's there, that's fantastic. Right? And there's nobody who's going to get between what you think's happening and the writer's words. But when you're an actor, there are a whole lot of people, the director, the other actor, are all going to have different views of it. So envisaging how it could be is no use to an actor.
So you're not a fan of script analysis?
Yeah, I am, but not in the traditional sense.
Okay, how would you see it?
Well, firstly, you need to look at the whole story and go, what's the point of this whole story? Not only what happens in the story, there's a plot in the story, but there's a theme or a purpose. And when you look at what do we want the story to say, then you can go, okay, my character's going to fulfill this role in this journey. It might only be one scene, right? But it's not, your character is not random, it's there as part of the storytelling thing. So when you know what purpose you've got, then you can start analysing which conversation rule, which relationship aspect you're going to build, so that you can serve the development of the story. It's got to all be about story.
So let's switch gears a little bit.
Yep.
Tell me what are you most proud of so far in what you've developed with the rehearsal room, and where do you want to see it go in the next few years?
Well, what I'm proud of is that I've actually got 2 people at the moment who could run these classes for me and do as good a job as me. And what's more, we've run sessions together, and what people say is, it's amazing that you get 3 people talking about acting and you're all saying the same thing. We're not going, oh, but he said, and that's a bit different. And yet, we're all creative in the way we're doing it, and we're not parroting stuff.
What have you got in the way of tangible outcomes for actors working?
What every acting school wants is a big star.
Yeah,
that's a tangible outcome.
Or a number of people who are actually getting work. So how would you rate yourself, your school in relation to that?
In that way, we can't go, there are massive runs on the board. But Glenn Quinn was a lead in Jersey Boys. And Peter McTighe, interestingly, moved out of acting into writing. He's now writing internationally. Wrote 7 out of 10 of the first series of Wentworth. And has just bought a flat in England because he's spent so much time going backwards and forwards there.
And
based
how would
on
he?
this stuff.
Okay, so how did he translate the work that you taught him to
Well,
writing?
that would be interesting, and you should interview him about that.
I might.
Because he says the rehearsal room process was a major factor in how he developed as a writer. But I actually, because I don't ask him that question. But that's what he says.
I'd also be really interested to know what your thoughts are about the industry. So now you've got a long history. When you started out as a director, the industry was very different to what it is now. So what have you seen?
Well, we've seen big changes, and you know, one of the things you learn when you start directing is that everything's connected, as is your character, to circumstances and relationships. So everything's connected to budget, and budget's connected to time, and so and to technology. And so there's all this technology out there which enables you to do self-tests and whatever. It's cheaper for the people doing the job, right? So instead of spending 15 minutes with you, they can spend 2 minutes looking at the outcome of your test. So you need to be getting better at self-tests and that sort of thing. And we've been working on those things with huge results. So I had an actor this week who's just done an audition. She got 1 take.
Right.
She went in for the audition, she got 1 take, and she came out going, I'm happy.
Wow.
Right, now, that's a change in that the common thing is, oh, your first one was warming up, your second one and that, right? And that's time and money for that casting director. But we have in recent times been working on that because the rehearsal room keeps adjusting to the nature of the industry, whereas what I see is a lot of other acting processes are stuck with this is the way it is, right? And they don't adjust. So we keep learning stuff, and we've learned exciting new things this term, and we've seen people's, for example, screen presence double as a result of an outcome. And that's the other thing that I'm proud of about the rehearsal room, is that I've always said the rehearsal room is about high percentage returns. And when you can look back at what you do and go, that's twice as good, you know, has a clear measurement, or I can significantly see the improvement, then we know we're doing something that's working. It's working. And what's more, I don't know what the next thing is that's going to have it working better.
And that's exciting in itself.
It's exciting. It's what gets me out of bed every morning. Lesley.
So you just mentioned that what you've been working on recently is presence.
Yeah.
Can you say a bit more about that?
Yeah, because it's one of the things, it's one of the bloody actors' things is, you know, the emphasis is on being real. Right? And so, and I've said to actors, and an actor said to me once, I'm going to come back and do the masterclass again this time. I said to him, why? And he said, well, I think I can work on it more. And I went, no, you're doing fine, but you're still boring and I'm never going to hire you. So unless you're going to come back on increasing your screen presence and pushing story, there's no point.
So you found a way to create presence.
Well, all the time. And in fact, you know, we came up with one thing. One night in a class, it happened in this conversation. I take it to another group and go, what's the difference? And they go, I'm listening. My listening's gone up 200%. And I went, your screen presence has gone up 200%. Kyle Anderson came up with a thing when he was directing opera singers about how to think about conversation goals, which is really effective and gets them more externally focused. And it's really simple. Like, what do I think you think of me? And how do I want to change that? So when I get onto that, I'm going, there you are, you're thinking it again. And now I've got to do something about changing it. No, so you think you're agreeing, but you're not really yet. I've still got to change it. It gets me really externally focused. The more I increase my external focus, the more I am working on you, the more my screen presence
and the more
up.
Watchable you are.
Absolutely.
And
we had an actor the other day who shot a scene on spec and because she wanted to get into a series. So this is about the promoting yourself thing, which is really important and a change. And she sent it to her agent, and her agent went, "Wow, that's amazing, do another one."
Huh.
Now her agent has been on side and supportive and going, "You're great," but her agent has never gone, "Wow," before. And those are the sorts of measurements that we're getting from the stuff that we're finding that it increases screen presence.
So are you also at the rehearsal room doing work to help actors with the promotion side of their work and other parts of the business?
People who, all the time. But in limited ways, and it's probably an area that we can expand more. And we've been talking about getting a 6-month course up, which we now are aiming to start in February next year. And it's going to be a really important part of it. There are all sorts of things that help you get your career up, not only how you promote yourself, but also if you've got an understanding of story, you know, how you're maybe going to develop something that will promote you. Very important these days with web series and so on.
Absolutely.
But the other thing is, you know, actors still overall have limited understanding of how an audition room functions and what people are looking for and how you can promote yourself in that space. So there's so much work to be done, which is why it's nice to be getting other people on board that are teaching, because I think we can expand these classes and expand what people know. And it tends to be, I think, that actors go, "Oh, the rehearsal room's just another acting class and I should look into it," until they come here. And when they come here, they go, "This is different and this is special and I need to do more of it because I can see the way I'm improving." It's what we've always done, is you've got to be able to measure your improvement. If you can't measure your improvement, then it's not working for you.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Thank you very much, Richard.
It's been great fun, Lesley.
Yeah, it's been really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I've been talking to Richard Sarell, who's the founder and head of the Rehearsal Room.